Hello, my name is Karlo, and today I will be giving a presentation on parasitic plants intended for the third grade of biology. I will be covering the fundamentals of parasitism, as well as the morphology of parasitic plants and the various survival strategies that they have evolved. I will be showing examples of these species, as well as how some of them impact human agriculture. The broad definition of symbiosis is that it is any interaction between two or more organisms of a different species. However, when we talk about symbiosis, we usually consider it to be a long-term interaction. However, in the case of, for example, humans and mosquitoes, it is a short-term interaction. There are four main types of symbiosis: mutualism, parasitism, commensalism, and amensalism. Mutualism is a type of symbiosis wherein both organisms get some sort of benefit. For example, a hermit crab and a sea anemone engage in this kind of symbiosis. In this interaction, the sea anemone benefits by getting to eat the scraps of food left by the crab, while the crab benefits by getting protection from the sea anemone because it is less likely to be eaten by a predator if it has a stinging animal on its back. On the other hand, commensalism is a type of interaction wherein one organism benefits while the other remains unaffected. For example, the shark in this picture is having a remora fish attached to it. The fish themselves benefit from this interaction by getting to move from point A to point B without expending energy, while the shark remains unaffected. Similarly, amensalism is a type of interaction when one organism is harmed while the other has no benefit from the interaction or remains unaffected. For example, when algal blooms kill fish, the algae themselves have no benefit and are not affected at all by the fish dying. Finally, parasites get a benefit while harming their host. For example, in an interaction between a human and a mosquito damages the host's skin and puts the human at risk of catching diseases, while the mosquito benefits by gaining nutrients required to procreate. There are two main types of parasites: obligate parasites and facultative parasites. The difference between these two is that obligate parasites require a host, and they need to be parasites at some point in their life cycle to complete it, while facultative parasites can be seen more of as opportunistic parasites, engaging in this sort of symbiosis purely because there is a chance to do so. An example of an obligate parasite would be Amphimerus, the species of Amphimerus, or the liver flukes, while a facultative or opportunistic parasite would be Naegleria fowleri, or the brain-eating amoeba, which sometimes infects humans, but it is not required for the completion of its life cycle, and usually lives in very warm ponds. Moving on to the main topic of this presentation, which are parasitic plants, they can also be grouped into two major types: hemiparasites and holoparasites. The two types can be easily visually distinguished from each other because hemiparasites have chlorophyll, while the holoparasites do not have it, and they usually lack any kind of pigment at all. Because of this, hemiparasites perform photosynthesis on their own, while they only steal water and minerals from their host, while holoparasites need to be obligate parasites because they take everything from their host, including the sugars from photosynthesis, as well as the minerals and water. An example of a hemiparasite would be a mistletoe, while a holoparasite will be the dodder. As you can see, the mistletoe has a green pigment, while the dodder, which is this strand-like structure on this plant, which is its host, lacks this pigment. The numerous haustoria of parasitic plants are the structures that allow their parasitic lifestyle. In the case of holoparasites, the haustoria will connect into both the xylem and the phloem of the organism, while in the case of hemiparasites, it will only connect into the xylem. They can either grow from the parasite's roots or their stems, and they will attach either into the host's roots or the stems. For example, in the case of dodders, they will grow their haustoria from their stems into the stems of their hosts, while orobanche will grow haustoria from their roots into the roots of their host. Parasites can either be exophytic or endophytic. In exophytic parasites, only the haustoria will enter the host, while the rest of the growth occurs outside. For example, this would be the aforementioned dodder. Endophytic plants, on the other hand, have all of their vegetative growth occur inside of the host, while only the flowers emerge to bloom. This would be the stem suckers on the left and the Rafflesia flower or the corpse flower on the right. In terms of finding a host, they can be further classified into generalists or specialists. Generalists germinate under very standard conditions and will use a wide variety of hosts as viable options to reproduce and feed on. Specialists, on the other hand, germinate only when certain conditions are met, like for example when certain hormones from their preferred hosts of their nearby roots can induce germination. From this point on, an embryonic root develops from the seed and attaches into the host. The following time-lapse shows how the generalist dodder finds a host. Moving on to some notable examples. The species of Rafflesia are endophytic stem holoparasites that specialize on parasitizing the vines of the Tetrastigma species. They make their habitat in the jungles of Thailand, Malaysia, and Sumatra, for example. And notably, they emit the smell of decaying flesh in order to attract flies in order to pollinate it. Interestingly, Rafflesia arnoldii is a species from this genus that gets the title for the largest single flower in the world, reaching over 1 meter in diameter and going all the way up to 10 kilos in weight. This genus also exhibits a very interesting ability of horizontal gene transfer, meaning that it can actually steal genes from its host in order to improve its parasitic ability. The stem suckers are endophytic stem holoparasites, which specialize on legumes. They are noted for their unusual geographical distribution, being that they can be found in the Americas, Western Australia, Eastern Africa, and even parts of the Middle East. Colpon compressum is an exophytic root hemiparasite, which occasionally parasitizes on some of its surrounding flora. For example, the species of Leucadendron are possible hosts for this facultative parasite. It grows these very pleasantly tasting fruits and makes it a staple of the locals in their diet, and also allows its seeds to be spread by animals. Its main habitats are savannas and the coastal dunes of South Africa. Interestingly, it can also be parasitized by some species of mistletoe. The aforementioned mistletoe is an exophytic stem hemiparasite, which has a wide variety of hosts that it can infect. Its seeds stick to birds, and when the birds go to other trees, the seeds fall off and the seeds can germinate there and continue growing. Because these plants can very quickly engulf an entire tree, it is possible that they can even kill its own host. This is because such a large number of parasites will deprive the host of water and minerals required to survive. It should also be noted that the fruit of the mistletoe and the vegetative parts are mildly poisonous to humans. The dodder, or any species in the genus Cuscuta, are exophytic stem holoparasites, and they generalize on a wide variety of hosts. They spread very rapidly throughout their host, and as a result they can easily kill it. Similarly to Rafflesia, they have a remarkable degree of horizontal gene transfer, which makes them a subject of study. This is particularly interesting because, like in Rafflesia, this type of obtaining genetic information is usually only observed in single-celled prokaryotic organisms and not in the multicellular eukaryotes. However, this occurs in this species, which is very interesting. The plants in the genus Orobanche, or the broom rapes, are exophytic root holoparasites, and depending on the species, they can either be generalists or specialists. They live most of their life under the ground and emerge only to flower and reproduce. The genus of parasitic plants, the Striga, or the witchweed, is in the same family as the broom rapes, which makes it the only family to have both holoparasites and hemiparasites. Similarly to broom rapes, they spend some time underground, but in this case of Striga, they emerge later as fully functional plants and they no longer require their host to survive. The aforementioned genera have a devastating effect on the agriculture in poor countries. This is because of the fact that an infestation of any of these species is extremely hard to get rid of, because the seeds of these plants are incredibly small and very hardy. Additionally, these plants target crops which are important to the food of the locals, as well as their economies. These are my sources, and thank you for your attention.